Welcome to episode 8 of Mitts Off. We are joined by defenseman Tyson Barrie, another former Leaf turned Oiler, original Colorado Avalanche draft pick, and current Nashville Predator, one of the most authentic guys in hockey and a veteran of almost 800 National Hockey League games. Mitts Off is powered by Sports Interaction, our exclusive betting partner. Get in the action and download the app to get started. 19 plus, and as always, please play responsibly. Hello again. We are thrilled and honored to have on one of my old friends, longtime NHLer, a veteran of 768 NHL games with stops in Colorado, Toronto, Edmonton, currently with the Nashville Predators. We would love to welcome in on our first virtual, coming from Music City, Tyson Barrie. How you doing, buddy?
Gaz, I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me, pal. Congrats on your first virtual.
Thank you, buddy. And thanks for joining us, man. I guess I got to start here. I got to start with this wedding. You got married this summer, so congrats, first of all.
Thank you.
Big A-list hockey wedding. I've been to a couple of these in my career. Some of my funnest summer events have been hockey weddings. Can you give us a little insight in maybe some guest list or location? I know it was pretty secret, but it was obviously pretty cool for you, and it was all over social media. So can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, definitely not. It ended up not being super secretive. I think the word got out. We even had some wedding crashers who ended up getting in and having some cocktails with the boys, and it was on Vancouver Island, down in Oak Bay, and it was just a really really fun week for me and Emma, my wife, and our crew of guys we had in and girls, and it was just really cool to kind of bring everyone to the island. It's a spot where, not everyone really gets to go. It's kind of, they all come into Vancouver and they love the city, but Victoria is kind of a different vibe, different pace of living. So it was cool to get everybody over there, and really, really fun weekend.
Did you actually have crashers? Did you get a couple of wedding
yeah.
crashers?
Yeah.
Tell me.
We had wedding crashers.
It's like people just snuck in, just past security, whatever.
Played the role, got in, and then they blew it. They probably could have had a really nice time too, but they were like, I think they were taking videos of Connor on the dance floor or something, and he was like, "Hey, this doesn't feel like family. This feels a little weird." And then my agent Bane Pettinger went over and he's like, "Hey guys, how you guys doing? How do you know the bride and groom?" And they go, "Oh, we're his agent Bane's cousins." And he goes,
"Come on."
He's like, "Guys, I'm Bane." And then they're like, "Oh shit!" So he ended up just asking them to politely leave, and but yeah, there was legitimate wedding crash. It was pretty funny.
Wow, shout out Bane Pettinger, Apollo Athletics. Of course, he's got his head on the swivel the whole time, eh? He susses that out.
Oh, yeah, he was on it.
Can you tell me about your offseason? Obviously, it came to an end here, and I'm always curious asking guys, has yours changed with age in terms of density and strength of training and what you're doing on, off ice? I know a lot of it has to depend on the length of the season that you're coming from, but has that changed, personally for you, the way you attack the offseason as you've gotten older?
Yeah, I think even if you look at my last two off seasons, or the year with Edmonton, we went to the conference final and kind of got a later start at it. And then last year, obviously, we came up a bit short with Nashville, so we didn't make the playoffs. So your off season becomes quite a bit longer. And I just knew with the summer that I had coming up with the wedding and bachelor party and a honeymoon and kind of everything that goes along with that. I took like 5 days off after the year and just kind of started training again because I looked at July on the schedule, it looked a little busy. So I got out ahead of it. But for me, I'm 32 years old and just trying to stay limber, just try to keep the body feeling good and keep the hips moving well. And, I'm probably not doing a ton of, heavy weightlifting and stuff like that. It's lots of cardio, lots of skating and just making sure that, when it is opening night, my body and my hips are feeling ready to go.
I always love going back and prefacing guys' careers as a whole. And if anyone listens to me or listens to this pod, I love the minors and love guys that put in their dues, paid their dues, grinded it out a bit. So can you take me back to Cleveland, Ohio a bit and turning pro, Lake Erie Monsters? I got to show you one of the props from the set. This is a Shaq bobblehead night in Cleveland. I don't know if you were on the team at this point, but it was one of the craziest nights I've had at Quicken Loans Arena because sold the place out. Shaq was there. I fought Bordelot that night and got my head pounded in. But
He got you that night, did he?
yeah,
Because I
of the
remember
5 or 6 times he got me that time probably.
I remember when you guys were playing. You were in Edmonton, I think, and you tagged him one good when he was in Colorado.
Yeah, I
He
remember that
he
when I
wasn't
got
the same after that one. Yeah, that was but yeah, I loved playing in Cleveland. I thought it was a great spot to kind of turn pro, and we had a great group of guys there: Brad Malone, Calvin Pickard. It was a lot of fun. You're kind of getting out on your own for the first time, and yeah, I really enjoyed my time in Cleveland. There's some cool pockets there, and getting to play out of the Quicken Loans. Beautiful rink. They love the team there, so I had a lot of good memories in Cleveland.
Was that a battle for you, kind of a struggle? It was 3 calendar years basically for you where it took you to become a regular full-time NHLer. Both years, your first and second year pro, you spent time going up and down a bit. It's not an easy commute, travel going from Cleveland up and down for Denver. Can you talk about that being, was that a challenge for you, especially
Yeah,
that young in your career, kind of that adversity?
yeah. My first year, I had a good year in the AHL, and I kind of got a chance the second half of the year. I only ended up playing 10 games that year, but for whatever reason, they kept me up and just healthy scratched me a bunch, which I was kind of fine with. I was getting paid, and I was in
Yeah,
the
paychecks are
NHL.
nice.
I was 20 years old, so that was cool. And then the next year was that lockout, so everyone was kind of starting the year in the minors, and then I made the team out of that like kind of mini camp or whatever they had in January. Um, and so that was I didn't feel too um it was the next year that I got sent down after Patty Waugh came in as a coach, and I got sent down after 6 games after making the team out of camp. And that's when I was kind of like tested my resolve a little bit, because I felt like deserved to be there and belonged in the NHL. And I was a bit nervous that maybe coach didn't feel the same way. So um yeah, I just kind of had like I just remember having one really good game. It was kind of like I got into a bit of a FU with our D coach, and he kind of said, "Show me something." And I remember just kind of going out, and I think I made a good pass to Stas to tie it up late, and then I got the OT winner, and then kind of never looked back after that. But it was definitely maybe if I hadn't turned it on a little bit, I don't know. You never know how a career can go, but there was yeah, there was definitely a little bit of moment in time in my third year where I got sent down, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like,
Yeah.
am I good enough to be in the NHL? Do I belong here? So it was. I'm super grateful it worked out.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about Patty because you're the first guy that I've talked to. Even when I was playing, I didn't really play with a lot of guys that had experience playing for Patty. And that's like a clear thing when you can look at guys, hockey DBs or whatever it is, and see, wow, he went down that third year for X amount of games. Like, what was your and Patty's relationship? What was he like behind the bench?
Yeah, he was super passionate. I think it was only down for six games that year, but it was early, and um, I know that Joe really believed in me, and I'm not sure Patty had that same sentiment or whatever, but me and Patty got to a good place eventually, and I enjoyed playing for Patty. He was intense and passionate, and you kind of knew where you stood, and if anything ever got too fiery, he was always the next day he wasn't holding a grudge. He was coming in, Tabernac. He had a good he was a really good motivator too. He had a way of getting the boys going before the game that was it was enjoyable.
You had some pretty cool vets there, though, man. When I was looking back at some of those rosters, Jerome McGinley, Alex Tanguay, Milan Hayduk, JS Giguère, was that like a cool or intimidating atmosphere for you? Because I know you're not that shy. You like to talk. And was that how you were when you were younger? Or were you just more of a sponge, like having those guys around, leaning on anybody?
Yeah, I was definitely tried to be a sponge. Speak when spoken to a little bit when you're that young, and but I mean, luckily for me, all those guys you named are some of the most world class individuals in hockey, and made everyone feel pretty welcomed and comforting. And then you had guys like Shane O'Brien and P.A. Parento, who were they were funny and loud and kind of brought the whole room together and stuff. So it was a good mixture of guys, and I was fortunate enough to kind of get along with both sides and learn from everyone.
I mean, on the other side of it, you're one of the guys, the only guys I know personally that's went through the arbitration process, went through ARB, and I don't even know personally what that situation looks like. I always used to laugh. My old agent used to say, well, you have ARB rights. And I'd be like, no, I'm not going to ARB, Patty. No one's taking me to ARB. But can you walk not only me, but listeners, viewers into like how that process worked for you and how you got to where you did, where the contract was signed?
Yeah, it's a unique process for sure. Like you said, not many guys go through it. And I kind of was under the impression that I wouldn't either. It's kind of the team and the players kind of like last bluff. You show up and then right before you go in the room, you usually hammer something out. But uh, hindsight's 2020. We were pretty close before we went into the room. I'm not really sure we needed to go through with it, but we did. And luckily for me, it was Joe Sakic who was the GM, and he's also one of the sweetest people in the world. So he didn't take a strip off me like you hear some stories, and some GMs and management can be pretty ruthless. So I feel like as far as it goes, I was pretty fortunate in the hearing, but it was frustrating to go through it. And I feel like the contract I did before it was kind of left to the last minute, and then this one we went through the whole process. So I just felt there was a little bit of, hey, if you guys don't appreciate what I'm doing here, we can try something else, and thankfully it didn't come to that. And me and Joe were able to hammer it out on the phone the day after the arbitration hearing. But I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think. It's a long day. It's there's some comparisons that get thrown around that you probably don't agree with. And but like I said, I was lucky I had Joe, and then we were able to get something done, I think a few hours before the ruling was going to come out. And I was grateful to spend a couple extra years in Colorado.
Dude, that's so cool about Sakic, kind of like not taking the shred you approach and like actually kind of having your back. The comparison thing's hilarious. Can you tell me someone that they said and you're just like, absolutely not.
No, I don't think so. I think you're still playing. I don't want to.
There you go.
I don't need any bad blood.
No,
But,
no, you don't have to. You don't have to.
yeah,
That's so funny.
I'm an offensive defenseman, and I'd had some, pretty decent years. And I think the guy they were compared to me had like 14 points or something. And I was like, this doesn't even really make a ton of sense. But yeah, Joe was as good as he could have been in that. And he's a great guy, and he's a good person. So I think that's obviously why they're having the success they do there.
Yeah, and few and far guys in their careers get to play for, the organization that drafts you for the entirety of your career. I always talk to people about how naive I was when I was with Dallas and thinking that I was never going to even leave that organization. So when you got traded, when it eventually happened a couple years later, like what were your feelings on that? That's the team that drafted you, the team that developed you. You grinded, you spent 7 years there. Thoughts and reactions and feelings initially to that trade?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, obviously the writing was on the wall when they drafted Kale. He was, I skated with him. We played playoffs together, and I kind of had a feeling my job might have been in trouble there. He was pretty good right off the get go. It's tough. It's like you said, I was drafted there, and I spent a lot of development camps, a lot of months in the summer there, and got settled in, bought a house, the whole thing, and became like a second home. And the first trade is definitely the toughest. Yeah, it was a lot of good friends and good memories, and miss the teammates and the organization and everything. So that was tough, but yeah, it's part of it. And now I'm on my fourth team now. It seems to happen more than you realize, and but you just got to enjoy the time that you have while you're there.
You mentioned it. You kind of walked me right into it. I've been watching these kids that come in the league. Cale Makar is the perfect example of guys that just walk in the league, and these young guys, they don't even need time to adjust anymore. Like they're just ready to go. Like they come in shape, ready to play, ready to dominate. And I just feel like that's changed a lot from the past, from when I got drafted and I entered the league. Do you kind of see that as a thing too right now? Like these rookies and these young kids that are coming in are just getting better and better and barely even need the AHL time to come in and play.
Yeah. I don't know what the statistics are on it, but it seems like, but I mean, that's the way the game's gone. It's been going that way for years. Even when I was training, I probably wasn't at the level these guys are at, but they're coming in great shape, and they're coming in with, it's such a fast game now, and these guys are coming in with all the skill, all the speed, all the work ethic, and it's impressive. It makes for a great product, and yeah, it's just super impressive to see some of the guys that are coming in and making the impacts they are right away, because it's really not an easy league.
You're so right. And going back to Toronto, I think one of the reasons it's not an easy league to play in can be the markets that you play in or end up in. And I know you experienced some of that in Toronto, but I live here in Toronto. I've been a Leaf fan my whole life. We got a lot of Leaf listeners. And I want to know what kind of you were thinking, especially when you first found out it was Toronto, like you being a West Coast guy. I know how you BC guys think about Toronto and Ontario, but what were your thoughts initially on hearing that it was the Leafs?
It, yeah, full transparency. I was a little confused, just a little, like I wasn't sure, where I was fitting in there, and I got there, and I don't think the coach knew where I was fitting in either. So it was a bit of a tough one right off the hop. But obviously, with the players they had there, I was excited to get there and get an opportunity to be on the power play with them, and try to carve out a spot for myself. But there was no, like, that's not like I hated the Leafs or anything like that. I wasn't like a diehard Canucks guy or anything. It
Yeah.
wasn't no rivalry or anything like that. But yeah, it was just, I was in such a good spot in Colorado and kind of knew my role and was comfortable with what I was doing. And then, to go to a team where Mo was there, and Mo put up like 70 something points, was running that first unit. And, then I'm coming in and just trying to figure out, okay, what's my role here? What do you expect out of me? What am I doing? And I don't know if it was clear, to me or to them where I was going to fit in. And, we found a bit of success after, coaching change and stuff like that. But yeah, that was a tough move, and getting traded for the first time, and getting settled in a new city, which is a lot different than what I was used to, was it was a lot of things that went into it.
Yeah. I mean, the coach that's coaching there has obviously found himself in some hot water again. And I don't really need to assess that situation with Babs and what's happened the last week here, because I don't know. With everything that happens today, everyone has their own take, their own view, their own opinion on it. But I can't imagine that your time there from the get-go, like you mentioned, would have been made any easier by Babs. It doesn't sound like it was a very inviting, comforting situation to come into in the first place.
Yeah, it's tough getting traded, and then Babs is an intimidating guy, and he's got his way of doing things, and it's different than the way I operate and do things. So I don't think it was a great fit personally for myself or for him, and that definitely didn't make it a super smooth transition. But it's a game. We get paid lots of money to battle adversity and make the most of things. So yeah, I definitely have to take some onus there myself, and probably could have played a lot better too for him. But yeah, it's funny the things you end up fighting against.
Yeah. So can you kind of summarize that? I know you only lasted 1 year there. Can you kind of summarize that for me? Was that, generally a positive experience in your life when you kind of reflect and look back on it after it all?
Yeah, because I met some of my best friends. I still talk to a lot of those guys, and a lot of them were at my wedding, and great people. And I mean, it's not everyone gets to say they played for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that was a cool experience. But yeah, it was a weird year too. Game 70, I think COVID hit, and then that whole debacle, and just a weird. When I'm looking back on that, it'll probably be a very interesting time in my life, from the trade to COVID to everything that kind of ensued,
Yeah.
going into the bubble and everything. It was a lot in a short period of time.
You mentioned getting to play with a couple special players. One of those is Austin Matthews. And I read, you know what? I will say, I'm getting into the flights here because I read you sat beside him on the flights. But when people ask me what I miss most about playing in the NHL, honestly, getting on a charter flight after a game, after a big win, and all the boys get the sweats on, you got a nice meal, you're listening to music or movies, whatever it is, chucking cards around. Those were some of the most special times for me. And I can imagine being on a flight like that with a bunch of those beauties in Toronto and having that experience. But can you talk about sitting beside Austin on the flight, if that's even true, first of all?
Yeah. Me and Big Tony sat next to each other. I ended up renting Kadri's place, who I got traded for, right across the street from Austin, and then he would kind of pick me up every day, take me to the rink, and we ended up getting pretty close, and sitting next to each other on the plane, and had a lot of fun. He's a great guy, good personality, and lots of laughs.
Can you walk us through that free agency process a bit and how you landed on Edmonton?
Yeah, it was again a weird free agent year, with COVID was hitting, and we were trying to figure out what was going on with CBA and the cap and everything. And we get to free agency, and there was a couple offers out there and some, some multi-year ones and stuff. But just looking at the options that I had and kind of the fit again, because coming from Toronto where I didn't feel like, maybe it was the best fit at what I'm good at. I was just kind of making that my most important priority and trying to figure out where I could fit in. And looking at Edmonton, they didn't really have a number one power play guy. They had some weapons, and I just thought, what, that might be too good of an opportunity to pass up, and definitely took a bit of a gamble to take a 1 year deal, but I still believed in myself and knew I was a pretty good player, and I'd had a few good years and had a few left in me, so just kind of bet on myself, and I guess bet on myself, but bet on Connor and Leon too. Just kind of stepped in there, and it worked out pretty well.
It certainly did, man. You certainly reestablished yourself, and you mentioned the power play that had a little bit to help with it. And let's talk about this power play, man. I working on TV this year. I got to see it click at 40%, 50% over times. It's a special unit they have, possibly one of the greatest of all time. It's the best power play in the league that I've seen in a long time. I think the obvious factor of what makes it so good is Connor, Leon, the unpredictability of not having much of a system, set plays, or what it is. But from your angle, from a guy who's been in it and played on it, can you tell me why it's so special and what makes it so special and effective?
Yeah, I think, you've mentioned it, but I think another piece that, won't surprise you that flies under the radar is Nuge. Nuge is he's always the guy that gets the kick out. Connor can go through and dance for everybody, and he'll put himself on breakaways sometimes on the breakout. But whenever that shuts down, Nuge is usually the one who's getting the kick out, and sometimes not in a great spot. There's guys coming, there's pressure, and Nuge is always he's got an incredible ability to make that little baby sauce. Or he's always that second play off the entry is always the toughest to make, and Nuge has like a real knack for just making the right play every time and getting everything set up, and then like you said, Connor and Leon kind of go to work, and Himes is a great net front guy. They've got Boosh up top now, who's got the bomb too. So I don't see any. I mean, there's no holes in that power play. They can beat you any which way. They can, Himes will grit it out in front. Nuge has got a quick wrister. Connor and Leon are obviously doing what they do. So what makes that power play good? It seems like they've got all the right pieces in the right places, and then they're outworking other teams too, which is you got that much skill and you're outworking teams. That's dangerous.
I'm so glad you mentioned Nuge because he's one guy I talk about more than anyone. If you're trying to get away from the Connor Leon conversation, it's years now where I've said he's almost underrated. It's just that I don't think you realize the skill he brings to the table on a consistent basis and as a teammate, just like on a daily basis. It's the same guy all the time. He brings it every night, every practice. He's competitive. Don't think he still gets enough credit to the day for the job he does. And you got to witness that firsthand. I'm so glad you mentioned that, man, because he's a special pro, hey?
Oh, he's the best. Yeah, Nuggy's he's just a great person. Yeah, he just gets it. Everything. He's a great dude and a great hockey player. And I think he put up 100 points this year. And people will say, "Oh yeah, but he plays with Connor and Leon." Like, I don't know. You watch him play. He just always makes the right play. He does the right thing. He penalty kills. He power plays. He's big minute guy. 6-on-5 draws. He's always out there. He's just doing the right thing. And in the dressing room, he's an amazing person too. He makes everyone feel involved. And yeah, we could sit here and talk about Nuge all day.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a Connor McDavid question because of who he is and what he's done in this league. I got the chance to live with him when he was a rookie. He came into the league. He was figuring it out, was figuring out life, was figuring out the NHL on and off the ice. But I feel like he's matured. He's grown a lot. He's become super driven and poised and almost stoic. And you're starting to see a little more personality of him. But I kind of wanted to know from you, was there something that I don't even say found out about Connor or realized about Connor as a player or a person when you got there, as opposed to when you played against him? Your general thoughts about him as a guy. I know you ended up getting tight with him as you played there.
Yeah, Connor's a great dude. I love Davo. As far as something I mean, he's got a great sense of humor. You don't get, the media doesn't get to see it, but he's got a good sense of humor. He likes to laugh. He likes to have fun. And yeah, I mean, we don't need to talk about how good he is at hockey. That's just, it's almost getting outlandish, but yeah, I find it unique. The one thing of all the great players I've got to play with, Connor, Nate, Austin, I've got to know Sid pretty well. Those guys all have that, they'll have that one thing in common where they're just doing everything they can, whether it's off the ice, on the ice, like their work ethic, their nutrition, they're all doing the same stuff, just trying to do anything they can to get the edge to be the best they can. And it's pretty impressive. Connor's certainly leading the way in that. So he's a special player, special guy, and we're always rooting for him.
Um, you got any stories about Connor top of your head? I know he's got the hot tub now. I know everyone's going over there and mingling, but do you have one in the holster for me? Any Davo stories?
No, Dave will always host the team parties, and he's such a good sport about it. I remember we brought a champagne gun over there one time, and CC was trying to hit Mike Smith in the mouth. He was just spraying it all over his ceiling, and Dave was just like, just any sort of respect for my house would be nice, but he didn't really care. He was just laughing. Like he's a great leader, and he does a lot for the guys that nobody talks about, that kind of goes unnoticed, and that's how he operates. So Dave was great, and he's those guys are lucky to have him there.
I love it, man. And you honestly started talking about it there for a bit, but you got to be one of the only guys, especially a D-man, that's played with, let's call it five. Let's call it Matthews, McDavid, Draisaitl, McKinnon, Crosby at the Worlds. That was the question I kind of had for you, which you led into, was like, you said they were looking for the edge, but is there like a singularity that brings all those guys together? Is that what you think? Are they always looking to push the envelope, or is it preparation, or, what do you see that kind of assimilates all those guys?
I think it's the dedication. Like, some guys try. It's hard to kind of quantify, but those guys all have that, like, you don't want to say God given because they've all worked for it, but they have that ability that makes them have the ability to be the best player any given night. But they all are working every day to make sure that they are the best player every night. It's unique. They're all so dialed in with their nutrition, with their workouts, with their body, their treatment. There's no, for me looking at it, there's no real secret to why they are as good as they are. But, on any given night, any of those guys can kind of take over any game, and it's by no surprise.
We had Jamie Oleksiak on, and I asked him, other than Davo, who the toughest player was for him to handle in the league. And without even really thinking, he said it was Nate McKinnon, just because of the speed and the skill and the physicality. What makes him that way? What makes Nate that way? I know it's easy to watch and see how electric he is, north-south lines, how physical, but to have another elite class defenseman talk about, how hard he is to contain is says a lot. Is that what you see from Nate? Is he just the whole package?
Yeah, he's just a beast. He's got the mindset. He's dragging everyone with him. He's he's got all the talent, all the speed. He's like a horse, but it's his mindset. He'll run right through you if he can't get around you. He's a serious gamer, and he's one of those guys that's doing everything off the ice to be as good as he can. And then, you get him into a competition, and it can be scary. He's intense. So I think the intensity is probably what puts him in that category.
You must have been sad leaving E-Town. Hey,
leaving Edmonton was tough on me for sure. I thought we had we'd made some steps here before I went to the conference final, and you felt like a big part of that, and felt like I was having a pretty good year, and I didn't really think I was on the radar. I'd heard some Erik Karlsson rumors. I talked to Kenny, and he kind of told me, hey, that's kind of the only place you're going to go if we have a chance to get Erik Karlsson. I said, hey, no, I get it, no problem. And something came together last minute, and kind of caught me off guard. And I made a lot of good friends there, and we were on a good path. So that was definitely tough. But when you kind of start at training camp and you're building, and you've got that goal of trying to win the Stanley Cup, and then you kind of, it's just kind of torn from you with that. It's tough, but I was definitely keeping up with the guys and rooting for them, and it's like I said, lifelong friends there. So I'm always watching. Obviously, to be able to come to a spot like Nashville and be able to play here in such a cool city, it softens the blow. And now I'm settling in here, and we've signed some of my best buddies and great players, and we're on the right track here too. So definitely makes it easier.
You led me right into it, buddy. Ryan O'Reilly, reunited with your boy Snook, Factor, whatever nickname you want to call him. I had the chance to play with Snook when we were in junior and got to be, good friends ever since. And you got drafted to Colorado together, right? Same year?
Yeah.
So started out with them, and now you're back together. What a special guy. What a special person, athlete, on and off the ice. One of my favorite people, man. I always tell people he's one of my favorite players in the league, if not. Can we take some time here to honor him and just kind of talk about your friendship and what you've learned and known from him from getting to know him over the years?
Yeah. Factor was, he made the team in Colorado at 18, and I came in at 20, and, he was the same age as me, but he'd already kind of carved out a path as a guy that people in the room loved. And, he was 20, but he acted like he'd been there for 10 years. And just, I was really fortunate to be able to kind of hang out with him and kind of get to see how he operated and see the respect that the older guys had for him. And, obviously I got to, try to take pieces of that and apply it to myself. And we ended up being playing partners, and he's got a huge passion for music like I do, and kind of bonded over that. And yeah, just let the good times roll when you're with the Fact Daddy. He's a beauty. He's I don't think I've met anyone that loves the game as much as he does. He's the first on, last off, and still learning from him to this day. So really grateful to be able to reunite with him. And yeah, he's one of those guys you just pick up right where you left off. So looking forward to a fun year here.
Yeah, he's the man. And you mentioned music there. You guys are both music fans. Tell me about this. I got here's my second prop. We went to the concert with Bane. Bane took us to the Lumineers concert here in Toronto. And I think this was Wesley's, one of the guys' wives. We had met them. They got us the tickets through Bane. So shout out again, Bane Pettinger, the man for hooking that up. But got to meet a couple of those guys and watch the concert. They're one of my favorites of all time. Probably top 3 concerts for me of all time. I saw them at Madison Square Garden when I was playing for the Devils. How did that relationship start with the Lumineers guys? And, is there some sort of charity or some sort of initiative that you guys have going too? Can you kind of give us an overview of everything?
Yeah. So I met Wes for the first time at a Tom Petty show in Vancouver. Oddly enough, Trevor Gretzky had met him. They were playing a show in Edmonton, and Trevor went down after the show and took a bunch of the band on the ice and was skating and showing them the arena and stuff. And he'd mentioned to Wes that one of his best buddies lived in Denver, and he's like, "Oh, that's where we live. That's where we're from." And he ended up just kind of linking us in a group text. You guys got to link up, whatever. And then we did at a Tom Petty show. He was opening for Tom Petty in Vancouver. He played his whole set and then texted me, "Where are you sitting?" And we had great seats. We're like 8 rows back. So we just came and we drank wine and watched Tom Petty, his set, and just kind of hit it off. And turns out we lived like 5 minutes from each other in Denver, and ended up just, our wives got along great, and just ended up being a great dude. And yeah, we've been best buddies ever since. And he's actually in town right now, so we've been hanging for the last few days. And just a really special guy, great band, like you said. And it's been a really fun relationship.
That's so cool, man. Musicians are always unreal. I always find that they're so enamored with the fact that we played hockey or we play hockey, when we actually think it's way cooler that they're on stage singing, playing music. But you spoke about Nashville, and I'll end it here. Nashville has slowly and quickly at the same time become a hockey town, man. It's got that college atmosphere feel. What a building to play in, right downtown on Broadway. And I know you got a snippet of playing there last year, and I've played there on the road over the years, but must be excited to get down there, or you are there, but get things going. And can you give us a little synopsis on Nashville and the Preds this year?
Yeah. Like you said, it's road teams love coming here. We've got that advantage too. We catch them with the Nashville flu every once in a while, but our rink is in such a good location. It's packed every night. The fans are there. They're rowdy. It's great living down here. Neighborhoods are great. And then, I just love the way that the team's headed. Barry Trotz has taken over as GM, and I think he's, his most important thing is culture. You look at our goaltender, I think we have, one of the best, if not the best in the league, and Juice and Lanks, and our decor is good. And I don't know, he's just making a lot of great moves. And I think we're going to surprise some teams this year. We're going to be tough to play against. And, when you put a lot of great guys together, it's, it's scary what can happen. So I'm really looking forward to getting started here.
For sure, man. Well, honestly, I know you got a lot of stuff going on, and I'm super appreciative of you taking some time out of your day and sitting down, man. You truly are one of the good guys in the game, and I know you've rubbed off on a lot of your teammates and friends that we have mutually. So thanks again for doing this, man, and good luck this year, eh?
Well, appreciate the kind words, Gaz. I'd say the same about you. So thanks for having me, and I'll come on anytime.
Thanks, brother.